Welcome back to the Motivating Force podcast. I am host Wayne. Joining me as always is Justin. So remember to go check out Anchor FM. It does post our podcast audio only on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, other platforms other than just YouTube. So you can go about your daily routines, your exercises, whatever it is that you're doing, and you still want to listen to us on your phone, you can go check us out on Anchor FM. But today we're going to be talking about going green, but with yourself. We're talking about sustainable energy. And quick, let's talk about how we never have that energy to keep going and going and going, as does the damn Energizer Bunny. Am I right, Justin?
Correct.
Well, this is a tricky subject because you can't really blame the lack of energy on just one thing. Because so much goes into dividing what you're using that energy that you have stored in reserves and what you're going to be kind of focusing in on spending that energy on. From day-to-day tasks, it's always going to change. If you're working one day, if you're not working the next, you're dividing what your reserves are going to be spent on. So you kind of can't really put like blame on one single thing. But instead, let's try to clean up the battery acid that we have so we can run efficiently. As I stated, every day we have a different reserve of energy that we have to give to our tasks, thoughts, work, routine, whatever. Some days we have more energy. Some days we barely have enough to leave the bed. I know you can relate with me on that.
Definitely. And I like your term here with sustainable energy because in the same way that it implies to our environment as it applies to ourselves, is it's all forward thinking. It's being self-conscious about the choices you're making. And instead of if that's using plastic straws compared to paper straws, it's about how well you manage your time and manage your rest. I like it.
I like that you said rest because that's literally the first point I have on here. Not having the energy or having too much energy is a cause and effect of rest. Duh, obvious. It's a given. You think of if you have energy, you go, well, did you sleep well last night? Right? So I don't really want to spend a lot of time dwelling on this topic, dwelling on this point, because it's like I said, common sense. Everybody should understand this. The more you rest, the better you rest and let your body recover. You let your body heal itself, the better you're going to be the next day when it comes to the amount of energy that you have to give to your tasks. But since I brought it up, we've talked about rest in detail before, in depth. So if you want to check out some of the tips, the tricks, pointers that we've given you guys, we've posted them on previous videos. So you can check out the vast catalog that we have here on YouTube. Check out any of the videos that we have with the tags for rest.
It's great too because rest is something that of course, typically doesn't get overlooked when we talk about energy because you're like, oh, well, you only get more energy the more you rest. And it's kind of more so a misconception. So I'm glad that we're kind of going over that point because kind of in the same sense where people say like it takes money to make money. Sometimes it's going to take some energy to get some more energy. And that's the point of keeping it sustainable and being mindful and keeping all that in check. And of course, rest being a fundamental towards that, there's so much more to it.
Part of the so much more to it is quick little fact that some people might not know. Did you happen to ever hear about if you leave your phone charging all day or overnight every single day, that it'll start retaining less and less amount of energy in between charges?
Yeah.
Okay, so then the same kind of thing happens to you if you sleep too long. I'm sure people have tried having those days that they just sleep in and they sleep a little bit too long, and then now they don't have the motivation or the energy to even get up. Where they think, I got more than my 8 hours of sleep. I got more than the 4 that I'm used to, so I should be good. I should have so much more overflowing energy. But instead, you're just like, I don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make up the rest that you missed out on. That's for sure.
Yeah, so it's like what I'm trying to say is you kind of can't go too far overboard because you're still not making it up properly. You have to get just the right amount to keep yourself going, because then your body's going to get too comfortable being comfortable. Then you're not going to be able to get up.
Yeah, and I guess it's really simple too, where, or some people kind of make up that simple formula where they're like, okay, well, if I work if I work 6 days a week, right, I'll just go all out, burn myself out, because on that 7th day, I'll just sleep all day. And then that's going to get me through another 6 days. And that is not how your body works. Yeah. And a lot of people think it is. It's crazy. Yeah. I think that's why we consume so much caffeine, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of pointing me out on this because, as you all know, I work overnights, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday comes around, and that's really my one day off. So I kind of tell myself, I'm going to sleep all day. That's what I'm going to do Wednesday. And then Thursday I work during the day. So Thursday, Fridays in the morning. Saturdays I come here. Cycle repeats itself. Right, so I think that sleeping an entire day on a Wednesday is going to do myself justice, but then when it comes around, I go, I'm going to stay up. I got things to do.
Right.
And it kills me.
Right.
But the next point is going to be talking about mental and physical recovery. You want to get as much reserve energy as possible to maintain sustainability, correct? It's the point of what we're talking about. But what happens when you have stress from work following you home?
I know a lot about that.
What happens when you're sore from work or the gym because you've been working out 7 days a week?
You know a lot about that. I ain't going to lie. I'm too fat for that now.
I mean, you also get sore from work, so there is that too.
I'll take it. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm trying to include you in this. The energy you had in reserve starts getting sucked dry by focusing on the stress now, by focusing on the pain, instead of being used to motivate you to go back to the gym or to go back to work with a better attitude. It also changes your focus from, instead of being on your tasks at home, to being focused on the pain or like the stress that I was just talking about. You have to start leaving stress where stress needs to be, and that's not on your shoulders, in your backpack, following you around everywhere. Do not carry it around all the time. What use is it to you to think about stocks or bonds when you're home trying to take care of a newborn, Justin? You'll start drifting away in thought instead of making great memories with your child. Justin again.
You know what amplifies great time spent with my kid?
Me?
Making sure I'm setting up a bright future. Okay. And not the Florida Scholarship Program.
I was like...
But keeping these stocks and bonds going so that way I can support the crap out of my kid.
All right, but you understand what I'm trying to say. Don't bring in the stress from the mechanic shop. Don't bring in all these other things when, especially other people. So let me get away from talking about you. Let me nitpick other people.
Well, if you want, I mean, I can share some of the ways that some of the tips I use to prevent these things.
Okay, yeah,
ways I use to sustain my energy, since this is a big call out shot, right?
Yeah.
All right. So one example, right, is your outlets. Okay. And now I'm not going to say that this is right or this is wrong, because people might have different opinions on it, but it's nothing too controversial. I am in Florida. We are rated as the worst driving state in the United States, hands down.
I-4 is the deadliest highway in America.
Correct.
Fact, yeah.
And so for one of my outlets, right, and I have a stressful day at work, the more stressful my day at work is, the faster I make it home.
I knew it.
And it doesn't matter if I'm driving my wife's Honda Civic or if I'm driving my Lancer Evolution, right? I can be in the fastest car I own, the slowest car I own. If I've had a bad day at work, it is going to be record-breaking time. If you're in front of me, you are the pace car, and I will pit you into the next lane. And then as soon as I put that vehicle in park at my front door, that's where it all gets left behind. It's having that outlet and then realizing where those physical boundaries are. And my physical boundary for my stress is the threshold of my front door. Because nothing that happened at work pertains to my wife or my kid at all. And I'm very much a believer in the feng shui and all that type of stuff, right? So I'm not trying to bring that energy into my home. So I'm finding those outlets outside of the situations that are going on.
Well, that's good because I mean, in my end, my outlets would be like working out. So getting all that built up energy, that pent up emotion that I have, if I'm pissed, instead of punching a hole in the wall, go work out and get that energy out of your system. And that seems to help a lot of people, but then you have to also be mindful that it's not just a violent urge that you have, because that's when it can get dangerous. Video games, another one that we're also familiar with. And when you're a new father, I knew that it is kind of tough to then find outlets like that. But whatever it is, like we've mentioned before, find accountability partners. Find somebody who can always be there to support you, and try to find new outlets when you can't get to others or the ones that you are used to. Try to find people that will be there to try to help you relieve that stress so that you can maintain a sustainable equilibrium of energy throughout your body.
Yeah, but all in all, even like, I know, all jokes aside there, with having that sustainable energy, I think, like you're saying, the great point here is keeping that equilibrium, because what you're really trying to avoid is being too lazy or taking it too far into the extremes. So being able to get off the couch and being able to have outlets are great things, because the closer you are to the middle, the longer you can stay in the middle. Because if you go too far down with it, right, getting too lazy with it, it's not necessarily that you're going to be in a recovery mode, because really what you could be doing is sinking the ship. And you want to be able to avoid that the same way you want to avoid building up all that energy to release it in a moment's notice, and then put all the negative repercussions aside for doing that, right? But now your energy levels are going to be at an all-time low. Whereas if you find that middle ground, you can hold that middle ground for a really long time.
Yeah. And that's why I started off talking about rest, because it's one of the things that people assume that that's just the magic cure for everything. But you have to know your body. You have to know how you function with the amount of rest that you do get. Obviously, if you don't have enough rest in your system, that's never a good thing. But also too much is not a good thing as well.
It kind of reminds me of that. Have you seen that meme about the whole rest thing with the whole WikiHow? No. How some of their stuff is absurd sometimes, right?
Yeah.
They're talking about being in stressful situations, and they said one of the things you could do is take a nap when you're in the middle of a stressful situation. And the reasoning it gave, it says, although the nap might not solve the problem at hand, it can prevent you from dealing with suffering in the moment.
Wow. Quick escape.
Quick escape, right? I don't know. We're just thinking of rest, talking about rest, stressful situations. It came up.
Yeah.
It came up.
Anyway, it is like it's a touchy, you have to find yourself in the middle, like you said. But now, of course, as we do on the Motivating Force, we're going to be talking about diet and exercise, because it is pretty obvious that a healthy, athletic 28-year-old has more energy than an overweight 28-year-old couch potato. Am I wrong, Justin?
I mean, yeah, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to respond to that. That seems like a pretty obvious statement.
Okay, good. I'm just making sure I'm not saying anything too difficult for people to understand, that this is common sense. But if everybody knows this, right? If this is common sense, why is it that people, I'm going to look at the camera right now, that people are going out and eating a McDouble followed by 20 McNuggets and washing it down with the chocolate milkshake?
Well, I mean, that's the meal of champions. That's why. No? Okay.
It is not.
Here's why. I can tell you why. Because people think people's energy levels run at such a low level now, right? Because we supplement all of our energy with caffeine, and it makes us tired as hell at the end of the day. And they're going to be sitting there at the end of the day thinking, oh man, I'm so exhausted. When really they're not. They're just crashing from their sugar high or their caffeine high.
Correct.
And they go, I'm exhausted. You want me to go push weight? You want me to go run a mile? You're freaking crazy. I couldn't even do that. I couldn't even get off the couch right now.
Yeah.
When the reality is, even when you're exhausted, you could go do that. And then what happens after you do that? You feel like $1,000,000.
You get more energy.
But people don't know that.
They don't believe it. They haven't tried it. They haven't lived it. But just the same way people talk about a runner's high. When you're running and then you feel like you're going to give up, but you keep pushing through it. And then you feel, I got a fresh breath of air, right? And you just keep going on for the next 2 miles. That's usually after your first mile when you throw up, you get that runner's high afterwards because then you keep going.
I mean, with that being a personal problem, I do remember the first time I ever had a runner's high, right?
Yeah.
And it was just finishing up 1.5 miles, and I actually ran at a pace that I wasn't going to throw up on.
Which is a miracle.
It is, right? That's the first miracle. The second miracle is the runner's high. And I kind of like, because I was on a treadmill, right? Because I was in the gym, right? And I was like, oh, I have 5 minutes left. And I was like, I don't really feel like ending this in 5 minutes. So I turned the timer off, right? And when I turned the timer off, because the programmer was on, it defaults to an hour. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, whatever. So I minimized the screen so you can't see the time or anything, right? And I'm just blasting tunes. I'm just jogging along. And I feel amazing, right? And my wife's like texting me, blowing up my phone. I feel my phone vibrate in my pocket. She's working out right behind me. And she thought I was about to have a freaking heart attack.
Yeah.
Because it was the first time I went from running 1.5 miles. I ran 4 miles nonstop.
Yeah.
It was the first time I ever did that because I just reached that threshold. Runner's high is amazing. Yeah. It is real.
But that's what I'm saying. So that same feeling, that same effect that happens when that's kind of related to runners, you get the same thing when it's working out, when it's moving, when it's going to ride a bike, when it's going to just do something, when you feel like you don't have the energy to do it. When in reality, it's more of a mental thing. Because like you mentioned, it's a sugar crash. It's a caffeine crash. But you do have the energy. You're just not using it to its true potential. You just got to unlock it. Unlock its potential. Let's be corny.
No, it's good. There is a lot of truth to that. There is a lot there that people do need to realize and unlock.
But the whole point of like talking about that whole McDonald's situation was to follow it up with the question, why are you not cooking at home? Is it because you don't have the energy? Well, that's probably why you don't have the energy, because you're eating garbage. You're not focusing on the trash that you're putting in your system and how you kind of metabolize that, how you digest it, how your body takes sustenance and energy and nutrients from the food you take in. So if you start your diet, if you start fixing your diet so then it's healthier, so then it's leaner, so then you're getting the right amount of carbs, you're not getting too much fat. Like when you're focusing on that, on the individual scale, you're going to have more of that sustainable energy to mess around with throughout your day.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, man. I love it. But again, like, of course, that crazy little adventure I took us on there with that conversation, a lot of that speaks truth to that, because like you're saying, people aren't going to think that they have the energy to do those things. And it's like, okay, well, I can just go and, eat McDonald's real quick because it's quick and simple and it's not going to be harmful, right? They don't think of what they're putting in their bodies. And all it takes is dealing with that low energy for not even a full week. Because granted, you have to deal with it for a little bit of time, but just a couple of days, right? And say you might be genuinely tired, but you meal prep. That next week, you're going to feel better about yourself, which in turn is going to give you a little bit more energy. Yeah. So now what do you do with that little bit of energy? Now you meal prep your entire week. And then from there, what do you do? Well, there you might go for a walk when you get home. Ooh, you see where we're getting at? Little baby steps towards improving your energy.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
No, that's a great example too of the meal prep, because that's what I've been doing since I work overnight. I kind of don't have the time to cook a full meal in between each day and each shift. So meal prepping has really given me the opportunity to either sleep just like half an hour more and then get up and then have the time to clean the kitchen, clean the room, do something else with that time instead of repeating the cooking process every single day. So it gives you a window added onto your week that you can put some tasks in with that energy that you are going to have when you're acting proactively instead of reactively. But just as all of our other videos have this one factor, this all falls back on the individual, as I stated before, because I've been talking to all the people with a lack of energy due to you guys like wasting it all on the wrong things, right? But there are people with too much energy now who don't know what to do with it. So I'm sure over the conversation we've kind of touched on it, given you some kind of pointers on what you can do to manage it correctly. Because the goal is to live with a sustainable amount of energy to help you manage the high levels as well as your low energy levels, because you don't want to burn yourself out. I've done it. I'm sure you've done it, Justin. It's not a good feeling. When you burn yourself out, you don't have any energy for creativity, for motivation, for getting out of bed, as I stated before, for being with family, for talking to anybody. You really burn yourself out and you can't get that match to light again.
Yeah, I mean, the older you get, the more responsibilities you have, the more things you're tied to, the more those burnouts suck. So for some of the younger people out there, you get to experience the burnout. Trust me, it only gets worse. Like, for real. But, you know, I have been through that, and I think that a good point here is if you are blessed with having that higher energy and you do run into these burnout situations, it almost seems like an oxymoron to say that you're going to spend some energy figuring out how to relax, right? So, like, how are you going to conserve that? And I think a really good basic way is to spend some time in some, like, lower frequency activities, right? And what I mean by that is slower paced. So,
yeah,
right?
Draw out the energy over a longer period of time.
Right. So, and it might kill you to do this, but it's going to help you avoid the burnout. And you might get bored doing it because it's not the normal pace you're used to, but go read a physical book. Don't listen to an audiobook, because I know you're the type of person that's going to put it at a 1.5 times speed, right? Go read an actual book. Let it slow you down a little bit. Some meditation, some yoga. Do some activities here that are going to force you to be a little bit slower, a little more methodical than what you're used to doing. And it's going to help bring your rhythm down a little bit there.
That's perfect. And that pretty much wraps everything up. Remember, just focus on yourselves, how your energy levels are. Don't try to like lean into telling your spouse, your kids, your friends how they should change up their routines, because as I mentioned, this is on the individual. So this is really just you focusing on your energy output and what your outlets should be to kind of balance that so you can stay at a sustainable energy level. Now, as I stated at the beginning of the episode, we are on Anchor FM. So go ahead, check that out. If you are still with us on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon if you haven't done so already. So then you know every Monday and Wednesday when our videos come out, you get notified immediately. And remember, down in the description, we have our social media links for Facebook and Instagram. You can go ahead, tag us, reach out to us, talk to us, give us some ideas on things you would like for us to talk about. Here are perspectives on. Go ahead, check us out on there.
And remember, if you are over on a podcasting platform with us, whether that be Spotify, any of the other ones that Josue has already mentioned, I won't run through them again, be sure to give us a rating and be sure to follow us. And in your rating, you can be honest. I would love a 5-star, but I will take your honesty above all else, because that's going to help us improve. And either way, it's going to help us out in the algorithm, help us reach more people. That's what we're all about. And until next Monday, guys, go on and get.